I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to end up here, writing some long-winded post about my marriage crumbling like a bad movie plot. But here I am. I was 40 when I met Amanda. She was 38, and I swear, she was everything I had ever wanted in a woman. Smart, kind, funny, and breathtakingly beautiful. The kind of woman who made you feel like the most important person in the room just by looking at you. We met on social media, which was weird for me. I never put much stock in online dating or relationships that started over a screen. But Amanda? She was different. From the very first message, it felt like we had known each other forever. I was cautious, though. I didn't come from a happy home. My parents' marriage was a slow-motion car crash that lasted decades. I grew up watching two people who were supposed to love each other treat each other like enemies, using words as weapons, silence as punishment. I promised myself I would never end up like them. So when Amanda came into my life, I watched her closely. I wasn't just looking for love. I was looking for proof that love could be something good. And Amanda checked every box. She was sweet, patient, and never raised her voice, even when she was upset. She handled stress with a calmness that amazed me. She was financially responsible, never reckless, never impulsive. And she treated everyone, waiters, strangers, co-workers, with kindness. By the time we got engaged, I was convinced I had won the lottery. I wasn't just marrying a beautiful woman. I was marrying my best friend. Our wedding was a dream. We rented a sprawling villa, filled it with everyone we loved, and spent over $200,000 making sure everything was perfect. I didn't care about the price. I wanted that day to be a symbol of the life we were building, a life that would be different from the broken relationships I had grown up around. After the wedding, we moved into a gorgeous house in the suburbs. It was everything we had ever wanted. I pictured us growing old there, raising a family, hosting holidays, and building a future together. For 3 years, I believed we were living that dream. Then little cracks started forming. At first, they were barely noticeable. A strange shift in her tone when she spoke to me. A distant look in her eyes that wasn't there before. She started going out more, girls' nights, weekend trips, work events that somehow lasted longer than they should. I didn't question it. I trusted her. But then, trust started feeling like something foolish. Something blind. It was the little things that got to me. The way she'd put her phone face down on the table, or the way she suddenly started guarding it like it held the secrets of the universe. The way she'd come home from a work dinner smelling like expensive cologne that wasn't mine. I told myself I was imagining things, that I was being paranoid, that I was just scared because I had seen so many relationships fall apart and didn't want it to happen to me. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. At first, I told myself it was just a phase, that every marriage had rough patches, that the stress of life, work, and loss could make people act out. But things changed overnight. Amanda became different, cold, irritable. It was like living with a stranger who wore my wife's face. She started picking fights over the most ridiculous things. I'd buy the wrong brand of coffee, and she'd act like I'd personally betrayed her. I'd leave a couple of plates in the sink, and suddenly I was a slob who treated her like a maid. If I worked late, she'd accuse me of not caring about our marriage. But if I came home early, she'd roll her eyes and say I was smothering her. It wasn't just the fights themselves, it was how they made me feel. Like I was constantly walking on eggshells, never sure what version of Amanda I was going to get. One moment, she'd be affectionate, almost like her old self. The next, she'd snap at me over nothing, like I was the most annoying person in the world. I didn't know what to do, so like an idiot, I tried to fix things. I suggested therapy. I told her we needed to talk, to figure things out together. At first, she flat out refused, but after enough pleading, she agreed to go to one session. Just one. It was a disaster. The therapist gently pointed out that Amanda wasn't handling conflict in a healthy way. She didn't accuse her, didn't make her feel bad. Just observed that Amanda's reactions seemed disproportionate to the issues at hand. That was enough to set her off. The moment we left the office, Amanda exploded. She accused me of ganging up on her, of trying to make her seem crazy. She said therapy was just another way for me to control her, to make her feel like the problem. I tried to tell her that wasn't true, that I just wanted us to be happy again, but she wasn't hearing it. She refused to go back. After that, things got worse. Then I found out her father had died. I had no idea. She never told me. I found out through a mutual friend, completely by accident. When I confronted her about it, she just shrugged. I didn't think it was important, she said. Not important. Her father had just died. I tried to be patient. I told myself that grief made people act in ways they normally wouldn't. That maybe all this anger, this distance was her way of coping. But she didn't want to talk about it. And instead of softening, instead of letting me in, she just kept pushing me further away. And her anger? It only grew. For years into our marriage, I still believed things could get better. That if I just tried harder, if I was patient enough, Amanda would come back to me, the woman I had fallen in love with. Then came the worst day of my life. I had been sent on a business trip, scheduled to be away for a week and a half. It was a stressful time at work, but in a way, I was relieved. Amanda and I had been fighting more than ever, and I thought maybe the time apart would help. Maybe she just needed space. Maybe when I got back, we could start fresh. But 5 days in, things at the company went south, and my boss called me back early. I didn't tell Amanda. Instead, I decided to surprise her. I wanted to remind her of who we used to be, of why we fell in love in the first place. On the way home, I went all out, bought her favorite roses for $250, a bottle of expensive champagne for $180, and a box of exclusive chocolates for $90. It was over the top, but I didn't care. I just wanted one good night. I pulled into our driveway, already picturing her reaction. Maybe she'd smile, throw her arms around me, and tell me she'd missed me. Maybe we'd drink the champagne together, talk late into the night, and finally feel like us again. I stepped inside and immediately noticed something strange. Music was playing upstairs. Soft, slow, intimate. There were 2 wine glasses in the sink. For a second, I didn't think much of it. Maybe she had a friend over. Maybe she was just relaxing after a long day. But then I heard laughter. A man's laughter. Coming from our bedroom. My stomach dropped. I don't remember walking up the stairs. I don't remember pushing the door open. But I do remember what I saw when I stepped inside. Amanda, in our bed, with another man. The world stopped. 6 years of my life shattered in a single second. I stood frozen in the doorway, my mind struggling to process what I was seeing. Amanda, tangled in the sheets I had slept in the night before, with a man I had never seen in my life. The moment they saw me, everything turned into chaos. He scrambled to grab his clothes, nearly tripping over himself in the process. Amanda didn't even look embarrassed, just irritated, like I had interrupted something I had no right to. Then she spoke, and her words hit me harder than the betrayal itself. What are you doing here? Not I'm sorry. Not this isn't what it looks like. Not even an ounce of guilt or shame. Just anger, as if I was the one in the wrong for coming home early. I couldn't speak. I could barely breathe. My chest felt tight. My pulse thundered in my ears. She got up, completely unfazed, and started putting on her robe. You weren't supposed to be back until next week, she muttered, shaking her head like I had disrespected some unspoken rule. Then she scoffed. God, you never let me have a happy life. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. She sighed dramatically, like I was the one making a scene. You did this to yourself, you know, she continued, grabbing a cigarette from the nightstand and lighting it like we were having a casual discussion. I hinted at an open relationship 6 months ago, and you shot it down. You refused to even consider it. What did you think was going to happen? I stared at her, barely recognizing the woman in front of me. This wasn't the Amanda I had married. The Amanda I married had made me feel like the luckiest man alive. This woman? This was someone cold, calculated, manipulative, and she was standing there justifying what she had done like it was my fault. My hands clenched into fists. I could feel my entire body shaking with rage, but I forced myself to breathe. I thought of my father, of how he had spent years taking abuse from my grandmother, lashing out in ways that had only hurt him in the end. I wasn't going to be like that. I wasn't going to give Amanda the satisfaction of seeing me break. So I did the only thing I could do. I turned around and walked out the door. I left that house with nothing but my car keys and my dignity hanging by a thread. I didn't sleep that night. I just drove. No destination, no plan. Just me, the open road, and the realization that my entire marriage had been a lie. By morning, I pulled into my best friend Ryan's driveway. He had gone through a nasty divorce a few years back, so if anyone knew what to do, it was him. Ryan listened as I told him everything. How I found Amanda in our bed, how she blamed me for it, how she had the audacity to act like she was the victim. When I was done, he sat back, exhaled, and said, "You need to be smart about this. Really smart, because she's about to make your life hell." He was right. The first thing he told me was to gather everything. Screenshots, bank statements, texts, anything that could protect me in court. And it turned out to be the best advice I could have gotten because Amanda didn't waste a second before going full scorched earth on me. It started with messages. At first, she played the victim, saying I had abandoned her, that I was heartless for not understanding her needs. When I didn't respond, the messages turned into pure venom. She bragged about her new lover, told me how much better he was, how he knew how to treat a woman. She threw insult after insult at me, picking apart everything she knew would hurt. When that didn't work, she tried to make me jealous, sending pictures of them together, flaunting their nights out, showing me how much happier she was without me. I blocked her number. Then the divorce battle started. I found a damn good lawyer. $35,000 for her services, but worth every penny. Amanda, on the other hand, made it her mission to drag the process out as long as humanly possible. She lost documents, missed meetings, claimed she was sick on important court dates, and when none of that stalled things enough, she went for the kill, demanding half of my business. She had never worked a day in that business, never contributed to it, but she wanted half. The woman who had betrayed me now wanted to profit from me. I knew this was only the beginning. For months, my life revolved around legal battles, endless paperwork, and trying to keep my sanity intact while Amanda did everything in her power to make the divorce as painful as possible. But in the middle of all that chaos, something unexpected happened. Imachara. It was the most random thing. I was at a bookstore, killing time, trying to distract myself from the mess that was my life. I was staring at a shelf, probably looking like a zombie, when I heard a voice next to me. "That's a good one." I turned and saw her. Soft smile, warm eyes, holding a book of her own. We started talking about books, then life, then somehow ended up grabbing coffee that same afternoon. It wasn't a date, just two strangers finding comfort in conversation. But something clicked. Over the next few weeks, we kept running into each other. At first, I thought it was a coincidence. Then I realized I was going to that bookstore hoping to see her. And eventually, I did. Sarah wasn't like Amanda. She didn't play games. She didn't manipulate or make me feel like I had to prove my worth every second of the day. Being with her felt easy, natural, like breathing. 8 months later, we were officially together. And that's when Amanda broke. I didn't rub it in her face. I had long since blocked her, cut all ties except for the legal battle. But somehow, she knew. Maybe she saw us together. Maybe one of her friends told her. I didn't know, and I didn't care. But she cared. One night, Sarah and I were leaving the mall, laughing about something stupid, carrying bags from a small shopping trip. It was one of those simple, happy moments, the kind I had forgotten existed. Then I heard it, the roar of an engine. Something in my gut told me to turn around. And when I did, I saw it. A car, flying straight at us. Time slowed. The second I heard the engine roar, my body moved on instinct. I yanked Sarah back as hard as I could, but I wasn't fast enough. The car clipped her leg, and the sound, God, the sound was something I'll never forget. A sickening crunch of bones snapping under force. She screamed and collapsed onto the asphalt. I dropped to my knees beside her, panic setting in. But before I could even process what had just happened, I heard tires screeching again. The car was backing up. I looked up and saw it lining up for a second hit. She was coming back. I didn't think. I just acted. I grabbed Sarah and dragged her between two parked cars, barely making it in time. A split second later, the speeding car slammed into the vehicle we had just been standing next to, sending glass and metal flying everywhere. People screamed. Some ran, others pulled out their phones, recording the chaos. And then, as if this was just another day at the office, the car door opened. Amanda stepped out, perfectly styled hair, crisp business suit, not a single hair out of place. She might as well have been walking into a boardroom meeting instead of having to try to kill me. She straightened her jacket, looked around at the stunned onlookers, and then she smiled, like she had won. The police arrived within minutes. They didn't even hesitate. Amanda was yanked out of the driver's seat and slammed against the hood of a cop car before she could even try to explain herself. Not that there was an explanation for attempted murder. Sarah was rushed to the hospital. Her leg was broken in 2 places, but the doctor said she'd make a full recovery with time. I stayed by her side the entire night, replaying what had happened over and over in my head. The next day, the police showed me the security footage. Amanda had been following us for 40 minutes. She had watched us, waited for the right moment, stalking us like a predator hunting prey. And when she saw us in open space, vulnerable, she struck. At trial, the jury didn't need long to decide. The evidence was overwhelming. Security footage, witness testimony, and the fact that she had smiled when she got out of the car like this was just another day for her. She was found guilty of attempted first-degree murder and sentenced to 18 years in prison without the possibility of parole. And the best part? The judge dismissed all of her divorce claims. No money, no real estate, nothing. She walked away with exactly what she deserved, prison time. Sarah fully recovered, and now we're planning our wedding. Her father, who happens to be a police officer, helped us get gun permits, just in case Amanda ever somehow finds her way back into our lives. But for now, life moves on, and I am finally free from the nightmare.